Today I'm going to tell you the story of Sockeye Steve, the only inmate in Canadian corrections to have received emergency parole because he was gay. Well, actually it's because he got a hate crime committed to him, but I'll tell you the story. First and foremost, I want to thank you guys for getting my subscribers up, and I see that you guys have been loving the content I've been putting out, but I got some bad news for you. I'm not going to be talking about what happened in jail very much longer. In fact, this is probably the penultimate, that means the second to last, video about the topic. I have other stuff I want to talk about. I was a Vice music journalist before I was a prisoner, so I am interested in stuff like music and culture, and I'm going to be talking about stuff like that a lot more than random prison stories. Also, listen up, the audiobook for Bad Trips is out now. You can get that anywhere you get audiobooks, including Audible, Kobo, Rakuten, or even Spotify. I think it might even be on YouTube if you search hard enough. Bad Trips, Slava P. So let's get on with it. And I'm going to tell you the story of one Sockeye Joe. That is not his legal name. That is a nickname he got for reasons that will soon make themselves very clear. Now, this story was told to me by a very trusted individual, but I wasn't there. I didn't see it happen, and it may or may not be true. But it's entertaining and it sounds true, and that's the most important thing to put on the internet. This happened around 2011 in Beaver Creek Medium Facility, which is where the person who told it to me encountered it. It's a first-hand source, but the source is also a criminal, so I don't know how much you can trust it. As you've seen in my other videos, there's a lot of ways to get parole, but I've never heard of emergency parole until I heard this story. That's right, this guy was released way ahead of his schedule because of something that happened to him, but he ended up coming back. I'm skipping ahead. Steve had visitations just like anybody else. Once a week, they went down to V&C and they met up with their significant others. In the case of most inmates, this is a wife or a girlfriend, but in the case of Steve, it was his boyfriend. That's right, Steve was gay. So Steve has the exact same V&C visiting time as a guy that we'll just call Jimbo. Jimbo has a visit with his wife and his kids the same weekend that Steve has a visit with his boyfriend. When it's time to leave, Jimbo kisses his wife goodbye, and Steve does the same to his boyfriend. Jimbo doesn't really like that. When they get back on the unit, Jimbo confronts Steve, and he says, "I don't want to see any of that queer shit in front of my kids." Now, Steve responds with, "Tough titty. That's my boyfriend. I'm entitled to the exact same amount of visitation that you are, which includes kissing my partner goodbye." Jimbo doesn't really like the sound of that. And next week, they're on the exact same schedule. Once again, Jimbo goes to kiss his wife and kids goodbye, and Steve does the exact same thing with his partner. Now, Jimbo was the type of person to only tell someone something once. He didn't want to have to repeat himself to Steve, so he didn't. Jimbo went back on his range, took a sock, and put about 4 or 5 cans of one of the strongest foods that you can get at the grocery store. I'm talking about Sockeye salmon. Jimbo takes his sock of Sockeye salmon and goes over to pay Steve a visit. He beat him until his face was swollen shut and almost all black. Needless to say, Jimbo was shipped out of medium and either into another facility or to max, depending on who tells the story. But Jimbo was out of there. As for Steve, the guards saw what had happened, and when they heard why it happened, they escalated it as quickly as possible. Nobody wants a scandal like that in their prison, not even the Canadian government. Steve goes in front of the parole board, face swollen shut, within a month, and they grant him something that's never been granted to any other person before: emergency parole. Depending on your political affiliations, you may be listening to the story and thinking, well, that's not fair. He gets to go home early just because he's gay? Well, yes, but here's the ending to that story. Steve ended up coming back within 4 months of getting emergency parole. And do you know why he revocated? He revocated because he got into a domestic altercation with his boyfriend. Hey man, at the end of the day, we're all the same. This has been another prison story by Slava P. Probably one of the last ones you're gonna get. I've got something really special coming out, and I'm excited to share it with you guys. So make sure that you hit subscribe. Also, go out and get yourself a copy of Bad Trips, the audiobook. It's 7 hours long. It's like a podcast, but better. And it tells the story of how we got up to the point of me having to make YouTube videos. It's pretty interesting. It's like this, but without all these. Been Slava P, another prison story. Like and subscribe. You know what to do. Peace out.